So we'll make a start, and we're on page 3 of the document. Now the first thing I'd like to do is just double click the wheel on your mouse. That's going to zoom to the extents. Now I've zoomed right in so you can't see the grid. So if I double click the wheel, then I can see the grid now. And if I just press the wheel down and pan up, what I'd like to see is the user coordinate system, the UCS, sitting there in my screen. So I know that's 0, 0. So when I start drawing, then I can reference back to this. If you haven't done that and you start drawing, then parts of it might be disappearing off the screen. It doesn't matter if that happens, just carry on until you've completed the task and then double click the wheel and you will zoom to the extent. So you have to input everything into AutoCAD. Now you can either put it in through the dynamic input mode, which is what we'll be doing. It gives you sort of a heads up display of what's going on. Or you can enter, if you're a bit more old school, into the command line. Now the command line for yourselves is probably going to be floating, whoops, daisy, floating on the screen. I don't like it to do that because you get an awful lot of stuff appearing up on the screen. So I'm just going to go back to dragging it into the side. So just grip on that thing there and let it go. And again, you can adjust the number of levels that you can see. I'll just put it down to about 2. It does take up a bit of space, but it's worth having at the bottom of the screen. So we'll make a start. So the first thing we're going to do is to create this rectangle. Now this rectangle is going to be 100 mil across and 100 mil up, but it's going to start 50 mil from the origin point. So it's 50 mil in the positive X and 50 mil in the positive Y. So after you've used the rectangle tool or called it up, the keyboard shortcut is rec as well. You can type in the start point. So 50, comma, 50, enter. And then the next point it's looking for is the size of the object. So it's 100 in the X and 100 in the Y. So you type in 100, comma, 100, enter. And that's the first bit of the rectangle. The next bit is to create another one inside, which is 5 mil narrow all the way around, or actually 10 mil narrow all the way around. So our start point is going to be 55, 55, and our end point is going to be 90 and 90. So again, we can choose this tool, or we can right click and repeat rectangle. We could have just hit the enter key and that would have done the same thing. And then we go 55, and I use the tab key this time, does the same thing, jumps to the next box, 55, enter, and then 90, tab, 90, enter. Okay, so that's created our rectangle inside our rectangle. Now we are going to round off the corners of this. We're going to do what they call a fillet. A chamfer is to chop off at an angle, but the fillet is to round these things off. So we'll use the fillet tool. Click on that, and then if we just click 2 lines, it's not going to do anything because our fillet value by default is 0. So what we need to do is use our down arrow and tap down till we come to radius. So you can keep going around. So you undo polyline, radius, trim, and multiple. So we'll hit radius and then hit enter, and then we need to specify the radius value. And now in this instance it's 10 millimeters. And again, you have to keep hitting enter. And then we can select the first object. Or, now if I wanted just to click one corner and sort that out, I click the 2 lines that make up the corner. And that will round that off. Then that's that over and done with as a command. Now I could hit enter, and that's going to call up the command again. And I could go back to this one and click, and then hit enter again. But as usual in AutoCAD, there's got to be a simpler way of doing something. So if I hit the down arrow, then I've got multiple, which means I can do more than one corner at one time. But I've also got this thing called polyline. So if I hit polyline, then because this is a polyline, it'll do them all. If it hadn't done these already, it would have rounded those off as well. And I click on that, and it'll sort all 4 out at one go. Okay, so that's the fillet command using polyline option. Now the next thing we're going to do is to use the offset tool. Now the offset tool is this one here. So if I click on that and specify the distance to offset. So I need to specify a distance. How far am I going to offset an object? And in this case, we are looking at 0.5. You don't need to put the naught in. Just 0.5 will do. And then hit enter. That's our distance. And then we can zoom in a bit. And if I choose this outside line, depending where I move my cursor, whether it's inside or outside, I was going to offset that line to the value indicated, 0.5. So I click there. Then I can go and choose the inner line and move my cursor inside again. So that's offset the outer one twice. So we become so we're now a millimeter in from the outside edge, and we've got one in between. Now I've just right clicked and hit enter, or I could have hit escape. That would also get out of that command. And the next thing we're going to do is put a circle, which is 40 mil radius, in the center point of this square. Now to do that, we need to call up this circle tool, and we need the center radius. There are several different ways to create a circle, 6 in fact. Center radius, center diameter. We'll be looking at center diameter in the next drawing task, but this one, it's going to be center radius. Now we need to find the center. And what I want to do is be able to track from the midpoint of this edge and this edge. Now at the moment, I've got no midpoint track set. So if I come down to my snap settings, my running snap settings, and click on this drop down there, I can choose midpoint from the list. If I haven't got that, then I'm no way going to snap to the midpoint. Now I can see that there's a midpoint snap set there. So what I need to do with the midpoint snap is to hover over the midpoint, and then it'll leave a little green cross behind. Now that means that every time I get close to that, it's going to give me a guideline, a track line. And if I do the same thing from one of the sides, and be careful not to go over it again, if I hovered over this again, it's going to disappear. Okay, so you can hover over for about a second to set it, and hover over again to unset it. You can have 7 different crosses on the screen at any one time as well. So if I get rid of all these, so no more left, then I'll put one there. I'm not going to do all 7, but just to show you that you can. Put one in the corner, another one in that corner, and then you can use these for different track options. But basically I want to come in and line along with that, and where it intersects with this, it doesn't matter if it's not exactly in that midpoint intersection, as long as I can see those 2 lines, there'll be a cross that maps that exactly. And then I click. That's to start my circle, which I selected many moons ago, and now we enter a radius value of 40, enter. Okay, so that's created that circle. And the last bit we're going to do for this video is to offset this circle to the outside by 1 millimeter. So again, now if you right click, we can maybe find recent input, offset, and specify the distance. Because it's not 0.5, it's 1, so enter 1 and then hit enter and choose a circle, and just make sure your cursor's outside. Don't sort of faff around too close to it, because it's sometimes it'll jump the wrong way. It does now show us visually which way it's going, which is always nice. So just make sure your cursor's moved to the outside, and then click, and that's set that to the outside. Everything's designed on this watch face to line up when we finally put it all together. So if something doesn't quite line up, then there's a little mistake somewhere, and it's usually because you've offset something to the wrong side, or set an incorrect value. Okay, so that's the end of the first phase of this. We'll come back and we'll put some little circles in the middle, and then we'll start adding more information to the watch face.